Another one. Again, welcome everyone to this week's Rotary meeting. If I could ask John Crumlin to give our invocation.
Please join me in the Rotary prayer. Open our eyes that we may see. Open our ears that we may hear. Touch our hearts that we may love. Clear our minds that we may think. Strengthen our hands that we may work. Amen.
Brother, 6 weeks from now,
Thanks,
we're
John.
going to be able to beat Kentucky.
This week,
It's the biggest
for some reason, we have two speakers on the docket, and I wanted to go ahead and introduce our first speaker. Larry Lassiter is a former district governor, and he is here to talk to us about the foundation. And his wife has also joined us, so if you would please give him a warm welcome.
Thanks, President Doug, and I will take just a few minutes. Sorry for the mix-up. I had set this up with Larry Aiken a few weeks ago, and I think I'm at the right spot. So.
He's not here to defend himself.
It's Larry's fault. The other Larry. Okay.
Good on Larry. We're certainly glad you're here.
Thank you very much. I know the guests will be introduced shortly, but I want to go ahead and recognize your Assistant Governor, Tommy Rosser, who is now officially our District Governor nominee designate. Will be serving in 2021. So. And he heard my remarks yesterday in Pittsburgh, so he can just tune out for a few minutes, and we'll be good to go. First of all, thanks for allowing me to come and talk a few minutes about our foundation. Obviously, November is Foundation Month in our Rotary calendar, and we try to stress the good things that our foundation does during this month. And we keep that in mind all year long, but again, this is the month we actually try to make sure we do cover our foundation. Your club's been in existence for a little over 32 years. Your cumulative giving to our foundation is over $233,000. Again, give yourselves a hand. And last year, your club was a 100% sustaining club, which means that every member of the club made at least a $100 donation to our Rotary Foundation. And again, thank you for that as well. I won't go into some of the things that I talk about as far as the history of Rotary. You all know probably a little bit about the history, or maybe a lot about it. That Rotary was founded in 1905, and of course our foundation began in 1917. And our foundation was started by Arch Clump. Our foundation's motto is doing good in the world. And we certainly do live up to that motto as we do things around the world through our Rotary Foundation. The mission statement of the foundation is to enable Rotarians to advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through the improvement of health, the support of education, and the alleviation of poverty. As I mentioned, our Rotary Foundation began in 1917 with an initial donation of $26.50. And that $26.50 sat there for quite a few years before significant donations were being made to our foundation. But over the past 100 years, as you remember, we celebrated the centennial year last year of our foundation. The monies in our foundation has grown to more than $1 billion. So we're a significant force doing good in the world. Just to let you know, too, our Rotary Foundation's first gift that it actually gave to an organization was $500 made to the International Society for Crippled Children in 1930. So we go back a long ways in helping make the world a better place. Of course, we all know our foundation's main goal is the eradication of polio, and that's been going on for quite a few years now, and we're determined to see it through. The effort actually began in 1979 with a project to immunize 6 million children in the Philippines. The actual Polio Plus campaign that we're doing now actually did not begin until 1985, but that's been several years as well, and we've been working very hard and diligently continue to do that to try to get rid of polio. And today there are only 3 countries in the world that still have wild polio endemic to the country, and that's Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Nigeria. Compared to 125 countries in 1988, so we definitely made progress. And I know you're eating, but I know each one of you, if you'll look up for 1 second, if you remember seeing this, we're this close, 99.9% of the way. Well, we've adopted a new motto this year, and we're doing this, and it's countdown to 0, and that's what we're doing now. We're hoping that we're on our way to counting down to 0 cases of polio. And our our foundation programs, not only polio is our main one, but they're designed to develop the next generation of leaders, provide funding to make the world a better place to live, and make peace a priority. Our foundation provides a lot of grants, $70 million in grants last year to 1,100 projects. And there are a lot of other numbers that I could quote as far as what our foundation did over the past year. Why do we support these areas of focus? We talk about our 6 areas of focus. Those are peace and conflict prevention resolution, disease prevention and treatment, water and sanitation, basic education and literacy, maternal and child health care, and economic and community development. We do this because of several reasons. A couple of them, there are 42 million people in the world that are currently displaced by armed conflict or resolution. Persecution, 1 billion people suffer from neglected diseases, tropical diseases such as dengue fever and leprosy. And there are lots of other reasons. 884 million people in the world don't have access to clean water that we take for granted every day. So it's amazing what's out there that we're still trying to tackle to make the world a better place. 1.4 billion people, think about that, 1.4 billion people and nearly half of those actually are working, live on less than $1.25 a day. We all know about district grants. Your club's been involved in several district grants. You use those funds for different things. You have the Character Plus program you've been involved in for several years, lots of other things that you guys do here. And those grants come from your giving to our foundation. And that raises the question, where does the money come from? As I just mentioned, it comes from what you guys do in supporting our foundation, from general public donating to our foundation. And those monies that we give to our foundation are invested by Rotary Foundation, Board of Trustees, and after 3 years, half of that money comes back to our district to be used for scholarships, global grants, district grants, all the things that we do, support the Peace Center, Polio Plus, lots of things we do with those monies that come back. And I don't know of many charities you can give money to and 3 years later you get half that money back, or you get to decide how you want to spend it. I think that's pretty neat. And I will say that 91 cents of every dollar that we give to our foundation is used to support our programs. So there are lots of worthwhile projects, and I know you guys have been involved in Rise Against Hunger, They'll Stop Hunger Now program, I think, and several other things. You do lots in your community, and I know some of that is funded partially through the district grant that you get through our foundation. And global grants, obviously, you guys have been involved in global grants. I know you guys had several with Mexico and water projects, so you guys are familiar with those, and I applaud you for what you've been doing with those. I was going to run through the recognition levels of our foundation, but I will skip that for today. And I know you guys have good leadership here, and I will leave a listing of those things for your club that you can share. Our goals for this year, 2017-18, are to have every member in our district to give at least $100 to our foundation. We want to be 100% sustaining district, for the foundation. And you guys were a sustaining club last year, so it's nothing new. You understand what we're trying to do. We were number 2 in the Rotary world last year, not just or the U.S. in the Rotary world. We were number 2 in sustaining members for our district. And you were at the foundation banquet last week. We kicked off a new campaign. It's called the $1 Million Dinner Challenge. And what we're trying to do over the next 14 months is raise $1 million in new money for our foundation. And for major gifts is defined as $10,000 gift, whether it be cash, a bequest from your estate, or however you want to do it, donated stock. There are several ways to do it. And we're looking forward to being able to bring this to a successful conclusion. And it covers 3 calendar years, year ends. So if tax planning is an issue, you have three years that you can make that work for yourself as well. I will say I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I apologize for doubling up on you guys today, but hopefully that's a little bit about our foundation. And again, I appreciate all you guys do, and obviously you understand our foundation with the cumulative giving that I just mentioned earlier over the life of the club. So thanks again, and look forward to seeing you guys again.
Larry's also the foundation chair, and because of that is on the road continuously. So thank you so much for making the effort to come down here and bringing your wife. Laura, you want to do our sergeant report?
All right, ladies and gents. Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Laura Scott. I'm the Sergeant at Arms today, stepping in. Van and I are sharing, of course. And I have the privilege today to welcome quite a number of visitors. I'm glad everybody's in town. I understand that there are several important Rotary meetings going on, so this is tremendous. Of course, we've already welcomed Larry and Dolores Lassiter, and just another welcome to Dolores. Thank you for being here today, and of course, guests of the club. We also have, as we've mentioned, we have Tommy Rosser, who our assistant DG, yes, wonderful. So again, a guest of the club. And we have a few other names today. Billy Liggett, a guest of the club. Thank you, and I guess our other program. And Gordon Anderson, also guest. Okay, folks. Oh, and Sean Williams. Where's Sean Williams? There he is. Hey, Sean, guest of the club.
Sean's not a guest anymore.
Sean's not a guest anymore, though. I thought you were back in the loop.
Sean?
Yeah, so he's back in the family.
Sean has not been sworn in, but he is our newest member.
Excellent. So, but anyway, a special thank you. All right. Who else can we welcome, please? So we have some, of course, we're all visiting Rotarians here today, but as well we have Laura Clapp, who's the president as well of the Siler City Club, Rotary Club. It's great to have the faces today. Were there other announcements? There's not a whole lot on my list. We have a few, I think.
Once again, I'm going to pass around the sign up for the Salvation Army bell ringing. So we still have some opening slots. We have 2 days at Lowe's, December 5th, Tuesday, December 5th, and Wednesday, December 6th. So if you haven't had an opportunity to sign up,
Tis the season. Tis the season to sign up.
it's coming around.
What other announcements? Yes, Chris.
You saw that I brought around tickets. That's for Sparkle and Shine. That's the Pottery Festival. There's music. What you've got there is admission to the beer and wine tasting part. I don't know about yourself, but that's my favorite part.
Some of those tickets.
Those are a gift from David Nestor and Steve Malloy and me and whomever. But if you didn't get any of those, let me know. I got a big stack over here. We'll be distributing them at the temple, but I figured you guys would,
Extras.
you guys would drink some of that. Beer and wine, I'm there.
Wonderful. You can follow that. Yes, Yvonne, of course.
I have the sign-up sheet for our Christmas party on December the 14th, and if you have not signed up, please, I want you to sign up so I can start putting everything together. I'm family of Rotary for Sean, so that you'll know who's going to do the cooking, okay?
There you go. So sign up. We have lots of sign up. Sign up to ring the bell. Sign up for Christmas party. Sign up in your own calendars for beer and wine. We have free tickets. What else? Other announcements, folks? We have some more questions. Great, please. Yeah.
I'll let Doug know, not yet, but do not forget, December 10th, 3 o'clock is our area family day of Rotary. It's going to be in Pittsburgh. It's their parade, Christmas parade. At 2 o'clock, they'll have a tent set up for all Rotarians to have snacks and refreshments with, and we'll all fellowship together and have a good time. Bring your family, no charge. Just come in and have a good time on December 10th at 3 o'clock. So put that on your calendar, okay? Be there at 2, because the parade starts at 3. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yes, sir.
I
Chris, please.
almost forgot. The Temple Theater, we got a million things going on in November and December. Christmas Carol opens in a couple weeks. The Embers next week is already sold out. The Neil Diamond Tribute Show this weekend is sold out. But we do have a really cool show going on tomorrow. It's a co-production with Central Carolina Community College through the State Arts Council. Mike Wiley, who's an amazingly talented playwright, he does shows primarily about the civil rights struggle in America. He has a show that will be at 12:30 on Friday. We'll have about 200 students from CC that come over for the production, and then it's going to be done again for the general public at 7:30. Tickets are $15. If you haven't seen a Mike Wiley production, they're really, really strong. They will really make you think, and they'll definitely teach you something you don't know. This show is called Breach of Peace. It's about the Freedom Riders that boarded the buses in Montgomery and New Orleans back in the, I think, 64, 62. But it's their stories and the struggle that they encountered throughout the country as they tried to integrate the bus lines. It's called Breach of Peace. It's $15, 7:30. We have sold very few tickets for that afternoon session or the evening session. Please come out and check it out. It'll be a really, really eye-opening show, I promise.
When, Chris, you said tomorrow?
It's tomorrow at 7:30.
Tomorrow at 7:30.
Yeah, and if you
One
can't,
show.
if something happens and you can't come to the 7:30 show, you can come to that matinee. There are probably 75 seats or so that are left for that, and we'd be happy to accommodate you there. But the evening show has not sold particularly well. We've got a lot of people say they're coming, but get on out there. You can basically pick your seat right now. 7:30 tomorrow.
All right, other announcements, please. Please and thank you. Okay, is it Brad?
Well,
Oh, no.
there is no meeting on next Thursday. It's Thanksgiving, so just a reminder, don't show up here.
Don't come. See you next week. Other announcements. Okay, is it brag time yet? I'll take some brags if anyone has something to brag about. Let's see. Dollars. Yes, this hand went up first. Tell me about your brag.
I'm gonna have to owe you a book.
Okay, write it. Someone take note.
This is the best cake I have ever eaten.
No, it was destroyed when I got over there, buddy.
Oh my gosh,
I think it was Dave destroyed
I
it.
stole, put one
Yeah,
aside because I got skunked one of the other times. Okay, John,
No,
yes.
that was just
Oh,
I
the brag.
got there.
All right, next hand,
You're
next
welcome.
hand.
That was good.
Yes, sir, for David Morris.
Well, I know you guys don't realize this, but basketball started Friday night. Vanderbilt again? Vanderbilt opened up with Austin Peay. They won. My nephew didn't play. He twisted his ankle on Wednesday before. And so he sat out Friday night. They played Monday night at Belmont. They lost by 9. He played 22 minutes, wasn't 100%. He was 0 for 6 from the field, 6 for 6 from the line, 2 steals and 4 rebounds. So they play UNC Asheville tomorrow night. I'm leaving in the morning to go out there tomorrow to watch that game. And then Sunday night they play Southern Cal at 9 o'clock on the SEC Network. If you're sitting around and you're bored, you might see me. So I'll be out there for those 2 games. I'm looking forward to it. And pull for them.
There you go.
Thanks.
Tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night.
You can't be bored because you're all going to Breaking the Peace or Reaching the Peace or whatever.
Tomorrow night, I think it's at 8. It's on SEC Plus. So.
Okay, next brag. I got $5 right here, so we got a big brag.
The reason why it's a $5 brag is I tried to do something different on the video. Besides my good friend just hitting the barrel and we opened it up. So last week video was Carolina Trace. I decided to do in the middle of the night. I thought about Saturday Night Live. So I got up and we put together an opening like Saturday Night Live. So whatever you do, if you don't mind, if you haven't watched it on YouTube, I think everyone have a DVD. Please watch the DVD. I can assure you, you will want this lady right here autograph.
There you go, a little incentive.
She is the star of the show.
How did that happen? Unbelievable.
Lots of stretching.
I know, I'm so shy. It's really hard for me. Other brags. Brags. Okay, without further ado, I'll turn it back over to President Doug.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you so much. That's always fun. I was going to brag on the Georgia Bulldogs, but they had a bad week.
No, let's talk about the Bulldogs.
They still control their own destiny. They went out. Well, Chris, do you mind introducing our 2 speakers today?
Not at all. Got with me 2 esteemed gentlemen. Who I guess this thing, how long ago did the rant start?
Depending on how you define it, when we go back like 2008.
All right, well, so we're pushing 10 years, but this thing just keeps picking up steam, and it's become, I know personally folks that go to that directly as a news source. And you guys managed to break a lot of stories, especially with teases about businesses that are coming. You guys stay ahead of the curve. These guys are one of the primary, political voices in town, and sort of, I guess, desire to be a voice for common sense, which I can appreciate in a lot of cases. But 2 very interesting guys. Are both of you talking, or is Billy taking the?
Yeah, we're both going to talk.
All right, well, they're both good. Billy Liggett and Gordon Anderson. I hope it's all Gordon.
I promise you this is not as important as Mr. Lassiter's. So, this is a product of us goofing around for the last 8 years now. Yeah. So, is there any way we can bring that in front of us? Or
I can run it for you.
That's all right. We just need someone to hit it. Way to go, Gordon.
Did the battery die out? We go to sleep.
There you go.
absolutely have to have it, but it's helpful. Well, I'll introduce myself since I don't have to read the screen to do that. So, I'm Billy Liggett. I came here 11 years ago as a newcomer, as an outsider, and as the editor of the Sanford Herald. And I was at the Herald for about 5 years. And then left the newspaper industry because I started having kids. And you can't work 11 p.m. shifts with 3 children. I only had 2 at the time. So I became a communications director at Campbell University. Also the editor of Campbell Magazine, which this is the only brag. I don't know if I have to pay $1 for this, but it is a regional and national award-winning magazine. We do a lot of good work at Campbell University for our communications department, and it's a lot of fun. And I left an industry, a newspaper industry I was very passionate about, and I went into a new industry, higher education, that I'm even more passionate about. And I get to teach a journalism class there too, so it's a lot of fun. So, and we'll get into what the RAN is and why we started it and what it's become, but I'll go ahead and fool with this a little bit more while Gordon introduces himself.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know me already, I'm Gordon Anderson. I also spent several years working at the Sanford Herald, 2002 to 2010, so my time there overlapped with Billy some. What's your password?
Hillary 2020.
It works.
It works. So, speaking of politics, when I left the paper, one of the things that I've done for the last, it's been almost 8 years, is I work on political campaigns, primarily local ones, but I have worked on congressional races and on legislative races in other parts of the state. So I've been kind of doing that, and I've done some non-political freelance writing as well. That all keeps me busy, and between Billy and I guess that's kind of what led us into this. The rant's been around in a couple of different iterations, going back to 2008, but
I don't know how to. So yeah, what is the rant? This is kind of. Well, we started at the Sanford Herald. I joined in 2007. I'm sorry I didn't put your dates of joining there, but this was our group back in I think 2009, 2010. The Sanford Herald, under our leadership, was the most decorated small newspaper in North Carolina. This was us winning our General Excellence Award in 2010. Everybody knows R.B. Height there on the right, and Neil Morris over on the left. Yeah, Neil's really thrilled to be there. And other than that, maybe Neil still writes for them, but nobody in this picture is still with the Herald. And this was about 7 years ago, and that's just the way the newspaper industry is. It's ever revolving. People come and go, and it's a shame, but we've all moved on to what we hope, or what we consider bigger and better things. I love this picture. So the gentleman on the right is Jonathan Owens. He was also a member of a writer and an editor at the Sanford Herald. And we started a radio show at Central Carolina Community College back in 2008. The idea was we were all still at the Herald at the time, and the idea was to kind of have a supplement to the newspaper. And we did a once-a-week show on Wednesdays where we would go over the news of the week, we would go over politics, we would talk pop culture, we would talk about our personal lives. And it kind of evolved into something that we really, really liked doing almost as much as we liked the newspaper. And we got a little more political with it, and I won't go into the ending of the show, but politics had something to do with it. And but it happened, and so when the radio show ended, we moved on to podcasting, which back in 2013 wasn't quite as popular as it is today. Everybody has a podcast now. We've even started one at Campbell University. This is Gordon's kitchen here, where we had some microphones set up, and the dining room. What did I say it was? A kitchen. Oh, well, I don't know what those are. So, and so we did that for a couple years. we didn't really, I don't know what happened to it. We tried it, we didn't really catch a big audience with it.
It was a lot of work, and it was probably the least paid attention to iteration of what we're doing, and since it's all for attention anyway, we found a better way.
And so that led us to really what happened in 2014 was when we left the radio show, we decided we still liked the rant, and we called it the rant because that's what our radio show was called. It has the name The Rant has nothing to do with what our news site is today. 'Cause I know rant is a very negative term, or it can be construed as angry or something like that. It was just our brand. We thought of other names to call our news site, and we ended up calling it The Rant. And we started it in 2014 as really nothing but a hobby. We all had other jobs, and we wanted to continue doing journalism because this is really why we got into the industry in the first place. So, and again, that's Jonathan on the right, and he is an important part of our team. And in 2016, or was it earlier this year?
Earlier this year.
We developed an LLC. So we are LPH Media. We will never ever tell you what LPH means. It's an in-house secret, but we are LPH Media LLC. And we have turned the rant into a business. And what that business will become is to be seen, but right now, we did that so we could start taking in advertising on our site, and we'll get into that a little bit as well.
So Gordon, if you'll start explaining to them really what the rant is, I'll let you have number one.
We get a lot of people asking us, well, are you guys like the online newspaper or something? And we're not necessarily trying to compete with the newspaper. We're not trying to be a newspaper. We're not going to put something out at the same time every day. We're going to put out stories when we have them. And these are stories that we, investigated and reported out. And that is one thing that you're going to get. But more so than that, we're a source of content. And we've both noticed that Sanford and Lee County in particular are kind of starving for local content. And funny thing happens when you leave the newspaper is that people start telling you a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And so we have all these relationships that we've developed over the years, and people still talk to us, and people still tell us what's going on.
Gordon was a police reporter for several years, and he still has a lot of sources within the sheriff's department and the police department. And again, we're definitely not here to bash the Sanford Herald. We are former employees of the Sanford Herald. We don't know a lot of people at the Sanford Herald now, but one thing we will say is just between Gordon and I and Jonathan, that's combined 50 years of news, journalism, and just total experience in Lee County. I think if you count out the entire Herald news staff right now, it's less than 10. So we're embedded, and it helps, especially with our news coverage. Probably even more so in some of the other things we do. Well, this isn't one of them, but we are a conversation starter. So when the Herald, I included that. I didn't know that was coming up right after I said I wasn't here to bash the Herald. When the Herald had its third editor in 3 years, we wondered what was going on, so we wrote a story about that. When a local mother came to us and said that her child had swallowed a piece of a fidget spinner and was sent to the emergency room to have it surgically removed, she went to us. And she could have gone to a number of places that would have taken that story, especially with how popular that story's become nationally. But we're a conversation starter. We do these stories, we do news stories, but also we try to do stories that ask questions, or stories that raise issues, or stories that warn people of dangerous things like fidget spinners, which the day after that story came out, we threw away our son's fidget spinner, and sure enough, it was about ready to break, and he could have swallowed it as well. You can take this one if you'd like.
We try to be a cheerleader for stuff that's happening here. A lot of times our most read stories, and this goes back to newspaper days, a lot of times the most read things are the negative ones, the crime stories and the violence, whatever. But we try to push a lot of what's happening, especially downtown, out there. Because we're in a time where a lot is happening here, and again, people really respond to these stories. They want to know when a new restaurant's coming, when a brewery's opening, stuff like that. So that's something that we try to keep our ear to the ground. And Billy's got a good source of information in house.
Yeah, I'm married to the downtown Sanford Incorporated director, so I get a lot of downtown news when we do talk now. And if you ever want to start your own news site, I'll give you one tip. Do grocery store stories, because man, people love them a good grocery store story. When we broke that Lidl was coming, our hits went through the roof. When the next day we said, oh, we're getting an Aldi too, the hits went through the roof. When Gordon and I walked through Aldi on opening night and just took a bunch of pictures and posted it on our website, the hits went through the roof. People love, and I guess I'll even add on, they love German grocery stores. Piggly Wiggly doesn't get quite as many hits for us. But, just kidding, we don't. We are a distraction. We have fun on here. That's something that we couldn't always do at the Sanford Herald. Oh, good Lord, I have another Herald story here. When the former editor wrote a column, God, I don't know what I was thinking when I put that one on there. We responded with Saved by the Bell gifts, which is the dumbest thing you could think of, and so we did it. And in 2015, when I attended the Star Wars grand opening, I had a major run-in with Penn Holderness of the Holderness family of YouTube fame, and they ruined the experience for a lot of people there, and so I wrote about it, and the next day Deadspin picked it up, and led to about 20,000 views on that one story alone because they received national attention, which is not what I was out for, but I wrote it because it was fun. It was a fun story, and it got picked up nationally. So
And I'll tell this as a little anecdote. When Billy told us that story, I said, you gotta write about it. It's gonna blow up. People are gonna freak out. It'll be seen everywhere. And he waited like a week because he didn't think that anybody would see it. And then I got a call from my cousin who lives several states away and said, your website's on Deadspin.
Yeah. We do a lot of historical stuff. This is because we are self-proclaimed nerds and we just like doing this. Keep in mind, all of this, we have full-time jobs. This is all stuff we just do on the side. When we found out, when Chad Spivey, who runs the kayaking business, local kayak business here, I think he was talking to somebody about a little island in the middle of is that the Cape Fear River?
Yeah,
Cape River. We went and checked it out. I went and walked across a train trestle illegally to get photos and videos of it, and we did a pretty long story about Lee County's little known island, the history of it, Mermaid Point, all these other things we found out, and then Gordon on the second one, I didn't actually read it, Gordon's you have to.
I discovered that this guy had been, who had died in like 1807, I think it was. You know, his grave is still visible, and that's just, you don't see stuff that old every day, and it got me curious, and the more I dug into it, the more I learned, and it turned out to be a really fascinating story that, you know, all this stuff's kind of hiding in plain sight, but we want to give you a way to read about it.
We've always done sports stories when they were of interest to us, but even very recently we've started discovering that if we do anything on the Lee County football team, it gets a lot of hits, and we actually have a pretty good relationship with their star running back and his family, Jameer Smith. Sorry, he's done a couple interviews with us. They've invited us to their place to interview him. They told us first when he was considering colleges, they said we'd be the first to know. We weren't. He announced it on Twitter, but we were the first to break that he chose Notre Dame. And then Jonathan Owens, our partner, he did the story over here about the Southern Line kicker. So we'll probably do a little bit more sports going into the future. We find that people seem to like sports.
Here's a story about the Cavalier kicker being on WRL tonight.
Really? Oh, is it really?
He's winning the extra effort award.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Tonight. So there's
Well, you might read about it on the rant later.
So this is really important to me to say this, and it's really important. So I put a stupid story up here, but we are not fake news. That's a term that's thrown around very loosely. It's been thrown around by people talking about our site when we write political things. We are all former journalists. We went to school for journalism. We've lived this stuff, and why we are much looser than we were at the newspaper, why we do try to have fun with it, why we we'll do some snarky things here and there. Things we do are researched and they're sourced. And when we break political news or when we write politically, we don't just do it haphazardly. We don't want to be sued. Believe it or not, we don't want anybody to come after us with lawyers or anything. We want to be factual, and we've been threatened a few times with lawsuits and things like that. But at the Herald, if I didn't go a week without a lawsuit threatened towards me, it wouldn't have been a very good week. So we're not fake news, but we are fun, and we hope people can make that distinction. We've gotten a little bit of cred, and when I say cited by, that these sites have not just mentioned us by name, but they've mentioned our site and they've linked our site. So Sports Illustrated picked up on a story we did about former Cavalier basketball star Akeem Richmond winning the lottery. Deadspin, of course, picked up the story I was talking about. Pointer, they've actually sourced us a few times. It's a site that a lot of journalists like to go to. And then the Charlotte Observer did a recent story about hate groups, and they went back to some of our old stories and asked us more questions about those, and we were sourced in a recent story as well. So it's important because it adds legitimacy to what we're doing. And this is really important as well. I'd say 2014, 2015, 2016, this was all very, what's the word?
We might have gone a month and only had 1 or 2 posts in each of those first 3 years, but as we talked about becoming a business, we recognized that there was a need for consistent content. And so we challenged ourselves at the beginning of January to let's hit a specific number of posts every week. And I mean, we saw from the first month that the traffic was just through the roof. We surpassed our traffic from previous years around
four times. Almost.
Yeah, but I mean, we did that in, I think, May.
Oh yeah. Well,
it was May so we know that as long as we're putting out content, people are going to read it.
It remains it remains a hobby for us. It remains not a hobby. Hobby makes it sound worse, but it remains a side job for us. But we did enter 2017 with a new purpose, saying we wanted this to be more regular, more focused, and it's amazing. It's amazing the reactions we've got, and this is an actual screen cap from our WordPress statistics page. This isn't a bar graph that I made. This is showing that we've well surpassed the previous 3 years, and we're on pace for 500,000 views. And if we keep up the pace for the last 3 months, we would be on pace for about 700,000, 800,000 views in 2018. Now, how do I compare that to the Sanford Herald or other small newspapers? I will say when I was a editor at a small newspaper back in 2005, 2006 in Louisiana, we kept very close track of our traffic, and we hit 1 million views in a year. But we were a full-time newspaper that did 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stories every day. For us to get to half of that, just with what we're doing, I'm very proud of that. And one of the reasons, it goes back to what Gordon said earlier, and that's people are starved for content. And in 2011, 2012, or maybe even earlier than that, the Sanford Herald enacted a paywall on their website, and I was editor at the time, and it would have been 2010, 2009 actually. And I was editor at the time, and I was vehemently against it. I was very against it because I felt like that put us at a disadvantage. And I wasn't looking toward the future saying, well, there will be other sites that'll swoop in and scoop up our views. I was more thinking that people are not going to pay for content online that they could get another place for free. If they want Sanford content, they'll either expect it free online or they won't go to it. And I was right, because our hits went way down. You have to pay to view their content online, or you have to be a subscriber. And my argument to that was, well, if they're already subscribing to the newspaper, what's driving them to the website? Because we didn't have a web plan at the time. So this is why we do well. We're free. When we break a story, or when we do a story the same time the Herald does, and it happens a lot, we get a lot of traffic. online because they can access that traffic. And I would go to the Herald today and say, drop your paywall, please. It won't hurt us at all, but if you want to succeed in this industry, it needs to be free online. One of the things that I feel the problem with newspapers today is the newspapers aren't losing readers. Newspapers today have more readers than they've ever had, and this is every newspaper in the country because everybody can read it online. But where they are failing as an industry is nobody knows how to capitalize online. And I'm not saying we know how to capitalize online either. I mean, we're not trying to make a living out of this yet. And it's, newspapers, they need advertising to succeed. But people are willing to pay a lot to advertise in print. People are not willing to pay a lot to advertise online. I don't know why that is. It's just the way it is, and nobody has figured it out. And there's a lot of really smart people out there trying to figure it out, and yet newspapers continue to fold. So when we developed the LLC, we started taking in advertising, and this is just an example of the majority of our advertising. I don't think everybody's included here. We don't promise advertisers hits because think about your own web browsing. How many ads do you actually click? I don't think any of us actually click a lot of ads. But every time you visit our site 500,000 times in a year, you're going to see these ads. You're going to see them on the rail of our website. You're going to see them pop up in our stories. You're going to see them rotate, and that's called an impression. And when impressions are more important to a lot of companies than actual hits are, because the Flame and the Dairy Bar, which where we're at right now, 500,000 times this year somebody saw the Flame, somebody saw the Dairy Bar, and our rates are so low that if 1 or 2 or 3 people a year actually went in and ate dinner as a family based on these ads, then they well paid for their ad. So Stanley Roofing, surprise for us. We don't know a lot of these people. These aren't just our friends. These are people that see that we have something that they want to be involved in, and it's helping us grow. And we've just recently, because of these ads, we're able to upgrade our website to allow for better mobile use, upgrade our website to do a few other things. So these ads are what's sustaining our site right now.
I think that's it. I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, you made a comment about the Herald. How long are they going to be able to sustain a daily? I mean, in my mind, it really looks like it's time for a weekly or a couple of times a week to be able to get enough news. It's driving me nuts to pay for a paper and there's not anything in it.
That's probably a decision. I mean, we can't really speak to how the decisions
I just
are
wonder
made.
what your opinion was.
If I was in charge of
We've
that,
been
I'd make it
saying
a
this to
weekly.
each other for years,
Yeah.
even when we were there.
But these decisions are probably made in Kentucky,
Right.
where the Paducah Paxton is, and
When I started at the Herald in 2007, we had a newsroom of roughly 15 people, and that includes sports, obituaries, photography. I would say there may be down to 6 now. And with 15, it was tough to do a daily newspaper. With 7, it's impossible. And I admire and empathize, sympathize, whichever is the correct word, with that newsroom who are worked to death and only hear the complaints.
and has a pain in the neck website that's kind of criticizing them in public all the time.
Well, yeah.
But
and in front of
I mean,
us.
it is important. We've praised them when we feel like they've done a good job.
We've defended them.
And we've defended them when
Political attacks against some of their writers, we've stood up for them. We know what they're going through. We know how it is. We know what it's like to be a young, starving journalist, literally.
And we should also say that what we do almost wouldn't be possible without them, because we're not going to be at meetings and ball games every week, but we can play off of their coverage, and hopefully they can play off of ours, and it's all going to result in something better for this community.
Anybody else got any questions?
I got a question.
Yeah.
So I've always wondered this about journalists. So
do you really significantly get a large hits by taking a far right or a far left position? Is that what it is? Why most media
Not hits. I don't think that matters in hits. I think it matters in your overall following, though. If I'm not gonna lie, we're probably viewed as more of a left-leaning news source because we tend to punch Republicans a little more, but we have punched Democrats too. But you know, it's just a little easier to punch Republicans. When they put it, no, I'm kidding. It helps in your following, but we find we do a lot of veteran stories. We do a lot of I can't think of the top of my head other stories that we get a wide audience that likes those stories. Sports stories. It doesn't matter right or left, black or white. You know, it's
as we've become more of a consistent source of information, we've probably become less political because in the past it's like something would happen and it may fall into our lap and we write about it, but now we feel like, well, we've got an obligation to get stories out, so we're looking for things that aren't necessarily political, business stories, just, you know, you can donate to Toys for Tots, stuff like that. I wouldn't say we're becoming less political, but I would say that people should keep in mind when they read us that what they're reading is sourced and factual, and you know, we're more than glad to hear any disagreements with any kind of political coverage, but take it for what it is.
So which of the three of you is responsible for keeping an exact count of the number of stories you've run on Mike Stone?
Well, Mike probably earned some of those stories.
Tell what you tell me though. You run into Mike all over town.
I see Mike all the time, and he's never once given me a bit of grief for anything I've ever written about him.
I think it's funny. But if you were to search Mike Stone on Google, it wouldn't take you long to find your way there.
No, well, and
he's a friend of the rant.
Friend of the rant. And a lot of that went away when he became no longer a public figure.
Well, let's give Gordon and Billy a good hand. And Jeff, are you ready for the?
I am ready. Yes, I am. We got a small bucket today, total of $23. If I can just have you roll out one of those for me, please. Read off the last four.
7841.
7841.
Hey! All right. Well, you get to lead us in the four-way test. Here it is. Just read it right off.
Is it to their all concerned? Will the good of the will be beneficial